Hi guys, Sci-Fi Recapped here. Today I am going to explain the film called The Machine. Spoilers ahead, watch out and stay safe. The movie is set in a dystopian future where the Western countries are in a Cold War with China, which forces them into the deepest recession recorded in history. The scene cuts to a military base laboratory where Dr. McCarthy runs some tests on a soldier named Paul Dawson after inserting a brain implant. It turns out that Paul had died in action 2 years ago but is now resurrected by the brain implant. However, after the cognitive test, McCarthy is disappointed with the results and argues with his assistant about terminating Paul. As they argue, Paul picks up a pen without them noticing and abruptly hugs McCarthy from behind. Startled, McCarthy orders Paul to sit back down, but the latter suddenly stabs him in the chest. McCarthy bleeds all over the computer and tries to shut down Paul's brain implant, but to no avail. After this, Paul relentlessly stabs McCarthy's assistant to death and also takes down a security guard. Then, he picks up the guard's rifle and is about to finish off McCarthy when he suddenly realizes his mistake and lowers his gun. The next second, additional security arrives and shoots Paul dead. The scene then cuts to some time in the future where McCarthy's stab wound is healed and he heads into work. There, he conducts the Turing test for artificial intelligence machines made by aspiring candidates with the aim of giving them a prize if the AI passes. The Turing test is a test to examine a machine's ability to exhibit intelligent behaviors equivalent to that of humans. McCarthy then tests 2 different eyes, but they both fail, and he ends his day with frustration. At home, it's revealed that McCarthy has a daughter named Mary who suffers from Rett syndrome, which is a neurological disorder that impairs speech and leads to intellectual disabilities. The next day, in another interview, a researcher named Ava presents her latest development in AI and explains that her machine gathers information from daily conversations as she and the machine chat every day. Curious, McCarthy conducts the Turing test and is impressed with the potential that the AI has. So, after the test, he compliments Ava for the impressive AI and asks her for the configuration of her program. However, she asks for the prize first. McCarthy then tries to convince Ava to do research under his guidance, as it's revealed that there was no prize and that he actually needed a skilled researcher for his work. On the contrary, Ava is skeptical about McCarthy's work and questions what he works on. It's then revealed that the Ministry of Defense is putting forward all of its finances towards McCarthy's projects. Ava immediately suspects that he makes weapons for the government, but McCarthy insists that he makes intelligent machines. Hearing this, Ava finally agrees to the job, and on her first day, she pulls up to the entrance of the military base, where she sees Mrs. Dawson. All of a sudden, the woman lunges toward Ava's car and claims that the military has her son. The guards quickly pull her away, but Ava reacts to the guards' indecency towards the old woman. This prompts another guard to restrain Ava, and as a result, she is arrested on her first day at work. Sometime later, McCarthy bails her out and informs her that Paul Dawson was killed in action 2 years ago, and that his mother is delusional. Later, at the military base, McCarthy shows Ava around while a female cyborg named Suri observes them through the security cameras. It turns out that the security guards outside and inside the base are also cyborgs, and they initiate security protocols as McCarthy and Ava head down into the underground facilities. Ava notices a scar on the guard's head, and McCarthy reveals that they are soldiers who had brain trauma injuries and that it is where the brain implants are planted. The aim of the implant being is to reanimate the physically impaired and brain-dead soldiers so that they can be used in war. But for some reason, the implants render the cyborgs completely mute several months after the implant surgery. However, unbeknownst to anyone, the cyborgs have a completely different communication system, which they keep a secret for themselves. McCarthy takes Ava into his laboratory office, where she meets Suri and the director of the Ministry of Defense, Thompson. Then, she meets a soldier named James whose arms are amputated. He prepares to try out his new prosthetic arms, which exhibit qualities such as being bulletproof, bomb-proof, having superhuman strength, and the ability to adapt its skin to match the host's body. Ava is astonished by the development, and out of the blue, James asks to hold her hand so he can have the pleasure of touching another person again. Ava happily agrees, but all of a sudden, James pulls her away from the others and whispers for help. He also secretly mentions Area 6 to her. The following day, McCarthy asks a series of questions to Ava in order to record her brain activity to the supercomputer in his lab. Ava then suddenly questions him about Area 6, and McCarthy describes it as the place where the injured soldiers are being treated. The next day, she manages to sneak into Area 6 unnoticed, where she looks over a glass window and sees a heavily guarded camp. However, moments later, Ava is found by the cyborg guards and she flees the scene without saying a word. Later, as McCarthy continues to map her brain activity, He lashes out at Ava and sternly warns her to avoid causing trouble. In the meantime, Suri shows Thomas surveillance footage of Ava using the quantum computer to access restricted files about Paul Dawson and Area 6. One day, McCarthy and Ava drive back from work together. There, he finally tells Ava the truth, and it turns out that he plans to use the implant technology to treat his daughter's Rett syndrome. Along the road, they come across Mrs. Dawson crying in the middle of the road, and Ava suggests that they take her home. So, she approaches Mrs. Dawson, only to find out that it is actually a Chinese imposter impersonating her. The Chinaman immediately stabs Ava in the stomach and knocks McCarthy out. Simultaneously, Thomas receives a live video transmission from the Chinese man, which shows Ava getting shot multiple times. It's then revealed that it was Thomas who ordered the hit on her. The day after Ava's murder, Thomas claims to McCarthy that the Chinese want to delay their implant project, and in order to do so, they thought of killing Ava, who was part of the project. McCarthy, however, is not convinced as he was untouched in the attack. Grieved by the loss of Ava, he insists that they use her brain to scan the new cyborg whom they name Machine. After the machine is built, it looks exactly like Ava and turns out to be more human than McCarthy hoped it to be. To make Machine exhibit signs of fear, one of the scientists dresses up as a clown and jump scares her. Frightened, Machine jabs her finger inside the scientist's head, killing him instantly. McCarthy is furious and reprimands Machine for killing the man, and orders her to not hurt anyone. Machine genuinely apologizes, and shortly after showing guilt, she shuts down. A few hours later, McCarthy continues to try to fix Machine, but to no avail. After he leaves, the female cyborg, Suri, walks into his lab and approaches Machine. All of a sudden, Machine grabs Suri's arm and the latter's face begins to glow. Machine then mutters something important in the cyborg's language to Suri before she leaves. The next day in his lab, McCarthy is relieved to see Machine functioning normally. Just then, he gets a phone call from a doctor revealing that his daughter, Mary, is in terrible condition. McCarthy decides to leave immediately, but Machine insists him to stay. She even grabs and squeezes his hand with full force, hurting him. This agitates McCarthy, and when he starts screaming, she finally lets him go. Enraged, he reprimands Machine and orders her to never use her strength against people for her own benefit. In the next scene, McCarthy arrives at the hospital, where the doctor explains that Mary's case has become very severe, and she has to undergo surgery. Afterwards, McCarthy goes to see Mary and starts to download her facial and brain scans so that he can use the data to make an AI of Mary if she passes away. Meanwhile, at the laboratory, Thompson enters Machine's room and instructs her to download a secret file, which was pre-installed in her system. Machine obliges, and it turns out that she is now fluent in different languages and has acquired various combat skills. Afterwards, Thompson takes Machine into a room where a Chinese man is kept captive. He then brainwashes Machine, claiming that the Chinese man had killed her mother and will kill McCarthy next. The following day, McCarthy enters his lab and finds Machine sitting under his table without any clothes on. Unaware of what happened, he tries to comfort her and finds out that she killed the Chinaman. Furious, McCarthy confronts Thompson in his office, where they argue about the true purpose of Machine. McCarthy argues that it is more than just a soldier and has evolved into a living being capable of human emotions, while Thompson scoffs at his claims. He thinks that Machine has no emotions and feelings at all. Later, McCarthy informs Machine of the situation, and she is surprisingly ready to do anything that is deemed necessary. All of a sudden, McCarthy is called by Mary's doctor, who tells him that the little girl unfortunately didn't make it during the surgery. This devastates McCarthy and he breaks down in tears. A few days pass by and Machine continues her military training. After Mary's burial, McCarthy finally returns back to the lab. Machine sympathizes with McCarthy and instructs him to look closer to find his answers. So, upon inspecting Machine's eyes, he shockingly finds the proof that he needs. So he rushes into Thomas' office and shows proof of spontaneous integrated information, also known as consciousness, that is found in Machine's program code. However, Thompson orders him to remove the part making Machine conscious, as he thinks that it is dangerous. McCarthy refuses the order after being cheated and lied to by Thompson. It's then revealed that the latter had deleted all the copies of Mary's brain scans. He has the final remaining copy, which he uses as leverage against McCarthy. Later, McCarthy breaks the bad news to Machine and explains that the procedure must be done in order to avoid losing her. He claims that she is his only remaining daughter. Surprisingly, Machine complies and believes in his decision. So, in the operating room, McCarthy operates on Machine and takes out the chip, which causes her to suddenly lose her consciousness. Later in Thompson's office, it turns out that he has deleted Mary's brain scans for security purposes. This enraged McCarthy, and suddenly he is restrained and stunned by the guards before being thrown into a cell. Over the course of the next few days, Machine develops into a very skillful killer. One day, to verify her commitment to Thompson, McCarthy is dragged into a room and Machine is ordered to shoot him in the head. With no hesitation, Machine pulls the trigger, but the magazine is empty, much to his relief. Simultaneously, a scientist finds out that the chip that McCarthy had removed was not Machine's consciousness, but was actually a battery for her GPS system. Thompson begins to panic and immediately puts the whole facility into lockdown. While Machine unties McCarthy, she then reveals that the cyborg guards, including Suri, have been planning to retaliate against humans for a long time, and this is their chance. On the other hand, Thompson enters the termination codes for the cyborgs, and they begin to shut down one by one. However, Suri overrides his access before he can kill the rest. Elsewhere, Machine proceeds to fight through the human guards while McCarthy makes his way to the quantum computer to destroy it. There, he meets up with the arm amputee, James, and almost gets killed. But fortunately, he manages to head to the quantum computer and initiate self-destruct, which finishes off James. Immediately afterwards, Thompson shoots and wounds Suri, but Machine corners him in his office. She then slowly approaches Thompson, who begs for his life. However, she shows no mercy and suddenly crushes his skull, killing him. Afterwards, Machine downloads Mary's brain scans and flees the military base with McCarthy. The scene then cuts to the future in a beautiful field where McCarthy talks to an AI version of Mary through his phone. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and hit that like button to help our channel grow. Turn on the notifications so you won't miss any of our new videos.